This is Let's Exchange Notes podcast. I'm your host, Zalika Adams. We're delving into the experiences of Black men with dating and marrying white women. We're excited to have you here. Let's dive into the episode. Thank you for joining me again. This is the Let's Exchange Notes podcast. I'm your host, Zalika Adams. My esteemed guest today.
Oh, no.
Oh, man. Byron Johnson.
What's up, Z? How are you?
Good. How are you? It's been a long time.
It's been over 25 years.
Something like
that.
When we talked, we were just trying to figure it out.
Yeah, we're trying. I think 22, something like that.
How did we meet?
So we met at Six Flags Worlds of Adventure right outside of Cleveland, Ohio.
Yes.
And I was a fun team lead in charge of, what do they call it? Vending. In charge of vending. So, we used to walk around, and where we first established ourselves was at the Glow Cart or something like that.
Or the Pinniped.
The Pinniped.
You were telling me what Pinniped was.
Oh, yeah, that's right. And
Pinniped was where we would feed the sea lions, but we would be in the little cage for people to buy the little fish from us.
And that was the very first time. And that was like, what were you in there? Maybe like once a week.
Yes.
Something like that. And then you would transfer
over
the
stadiums.
Do the stadiums. That was the fun part.
Oh,
That's when we had a really good time.
That was a blast.
You remember our friend.
Yes.
T. And he used to sell the whales.
Yes.
But that's another story. Another story.
Right. I was thinking about that because I was telling one of my girlfriends that I was going to be interviewing you. Mm-hmm. And now with social media being such a big thing, and we're really delving into interpersonal relationships, and especially for men, when it comes to, is he a provider or is he a protector? Mm-hmm. I recall this situation, speaking about the Glow Cart, right? Because this was the following year. I would have been 17 years old. And so you would have been turning 21 because you were kind of slick working at Pepsi, too.
That's right.
And so Byron would, Byron would come in his Pepsi shirt and just put his badge over the Pepsi logo and then work for Six Flags, too.
That's right.
And so that's what he would do.
It was a hustle. And I had to, I was young, so had to hustle.
And so that night, this older gentleman, will we say about 45, 50, with his nieces and nephews, was trying to get me to come to his car with him for a kiss, and kept saying, please come, you're so pretty, I just want a kiss, I'll give you $300. Oh my God, it was a nightmare. And you kept coming in between us, acting like you were getting something from the cart, right? And you did that like 3-4 times until finally he got the message and backed off. That was protector.
Yeah, I remember that. Like, I remember when we were talking on the phone, and you were like, you had mentioned it, and I was just like, well, and then it clicked, and I remember it down to a T because he started creeping me out because I went down to to check on you. I don't know if we were closing, but I think I was coming down just to check to make sure everything was there.
Yes,
and he just was real aggressive with you.
Yes.
And I know this is, the podcast about dating white women, but even back then, you was being a Black female, I felt it like that was just a weird situation, and I needed to step in because I knew you were younger, and I wasn't old, but I was older than you, and I felt like this was inappropriate. So I felt like I needed to step in. And I remember telling you, and you reminded me this, matter of fact, no, let's back up a little bit. When you found out I was dating a white girl at the time.
Yes.
I thought you loved Black women. And I remember this, and I've been this up before, and I was just like, I remember I told you, I was like, well, you can't help who you fall in love with. And then I hadn't heard from Zalika since for a while after that. I was like,
and then you said, but I did say I like big booty to make you feel better. She got a big booty.
True. It's true.
Since you brought that up and I reached out to you, what do you think about this idea? Like, what were your initial thoughts about sitting down?
It's something good to talk about. Yeah. I think because men have different perspectives of how they grew up, but of how they found themselves in this situation. It's not really a situation. That sounds terrible, but you understand what I'm saying.
I do.
Like I think the other guys that you talk to, I'm going to give a totally different perspective.
Absolutely.
Because a lot of people say, they kind of come into a situation like this, like, oh, he only dates white women. And I think I told you earlier, that wasn't my particular situation of how it happened. When I was 17, 18, 20, when I had, met you, I was right in the middle of college. And I hadn't really dated a white girl up until that point.
Right.
So
when we think about the removing the chip series, it's saying removing the chip off the shoulder of the black woman in regards to seeing black men, not just any black men, but it's always like the handsome, the chocolate, you chocolate.
Thank you.
And well-rounded, successful black men choosing to marry or date women who are not black, right? Then so leaving their counterpart without, right? Do you think that there's a chip on the black woman's shoulder from what you've seen?
So it's kind of hard for me to say yes or no, because, when I started dating white women, how do I want to say this? Like, I think I was young. So I like really young, like 20, 21, 22 is super young just to kind of be in that pool a little bit.
It is.
When I actually started like truly dating my first white girl, I was a junior in college already.
Okay.
And I met her, ironically enough, when I went to Ghana. So figure that out.
Right.
So, it was myself and several other white students, and then myself and my friend Denise, who is like one of my best friends. I still talk to her to the day. We just got the phone last Sunday. And we were the only two, African-American students who were able to go to Ghana. And there was this young lady, super nice. And that was like my official first white girl I actually started dating.
Right.
And then, of course, after her, I met my wife.
Yeah.
So that's two, and that's two. But all previous to that, it was all black. It was all black women, and I wouldn't even have thought to even think about dating a white girl. But the situations kind of turned. You know me. I went to an all-boy Catholic high school. So the situation.
Benedictine, is it still there?
Oh, it's still there.
Okay,
it's still there.
Shout out Benedictine. Yeah,
up in Cleveland.
Yes. I want to set some seed work here too, because you are a self-proclaimed lover of black women. Yes. So you are not surprised that would beg the question, how did you end up marrying a white woman? But we'll get into that.
Okay.
You understand that begs the question, right? Yeah. Especially since you're like, I am a lover of some black women.
Right.
So let's start with who was in the household. Who was in the household when you grew up? And this is Cleveland Heights?
Garfield Heights.
Garfield Heights.
So, my situation where my parents, it was pretty much the border of Cleveland and Garfield Heights. Right. We were technically Cleveland, okay? We were so part Cleveland that if I tried to go to, Garfield Heights High School, we weren't eligible. It was actually Cleveland. Okay. So at no part, because I grew up in a two-parent household, with my mom, with my dad, with my sister, and they felt that there was no way I was going to get a quality education by going to Cleveland Public Schools.
Gotcha.
So even...
But you would have went to where?
I probably would have went to Kennedy.
Oh, yeah.
Off of Harvard for high school. Yeah. Not that those schools were terrible, just that my parents wanted better. They felt that probably a Catholic school education would be best. So kindergarten, I went to St. Tim's right off of 131st and Broadway over that way. Literally right around the corner from my house. I went there from like kindergarten through 5th grade, I believe. And then from 5th grade or from 6th grade to 8th grade, I went to Archbishop Like, which was right off of Harvard. Which was like what's Warrensville kind of area a little bit, but it was still Cleveland. So there was no option. There was no way I was going to a Cleveland public school. So I still grew up with, mom, dad, my sister and everything. And I have uncles, aunties, of course, all, so that's all I knew. Was just the black family and I didn't start even meeting, white people up until I got to high school.
Right,
so,
because it was a mixed Catholic.
Yeah, it was pretty much 50-50. Benedict was, black, white. So
right. Okay. When you think about even in that time of like high school, when you're coming of age as the black son in the family, what kind of, when it comes to race, what kind of lessons do you remember being taught?
I remember going somewhere with my dad. Don't remember who, but we were driving his, what do you have, an old white Crown Victoria at the time. And we were coming home, I think it was grabbing some dinner or something like that, and we got pulled over. And we were literally 3 blocks away from our house. And the cop was like, "Where you going?" And my dad's older. So my dad had me when he was 40. So my dad, my dad right now.
So the age of that
age I'm
like
right now. So
right.
he was an older guy. Didn't look like it because, black don't crack.
Right.
He still look good right now. He's 81. Thank God. Shout out Arnold, you know. But, we got pulled over, and that was like kind of my first experiences with, a white police officer, pulling us over and my dad cocking an attitude. Right. Because that was our area a little bit. And I wasn't really sure exactly what happened, but we got pulled out of the car. We didn't get searched or anything like that. But it was just like, what was that all about? And I remember going home that night was like, "Hey, man, when you get your license, this is what you got to deal with." Yeah. And I'm like, interesting. I'll make sure I, keep that in the back of my back of my mind, Right. Then I told my mom and everything, and then that conversation happened. So, but I remember getting that talk, the talk about police and the black man early. And I would say that was around, I was like 9 or 10 years old. And I remember that stuck with me.
Wow. What about when dating? Did your parents, when you were at that age, again, as a young boy, a young man at that time, say anything about, okay, this is how you should conduct yourself when you're out in public?
So there was a situation, I remember I was maybe 11 years old. And was at Dairy Queen with my mom. And I remember this girl at the counter. And my mom is from Birmingham, Alabama. She country. So she was like, "Boy, grab me those napkins over there." And I was staring at this girl. And she said, "Boy, give me." And she yelled at me in front of this girl. And she was just like, "Oh, he likes girls now." So I know I got to have to talk with him later on. But that was kind of like my first thing. But it was, the whole race thing ain't even come up yet. It was just like the black. But I didn't even start dating until I was like 17, which is about the average age. Right. But by going to an all-boys school, I didn't know no girls,
Exactly.
I had one of my friends, her name was Hallie, who I still talk to this day. She went to Beaumont.
Yes.
Like she was my little
equivalent
to Benedict, to the all-girls school, and that was kind of like my little introduction into meeting like kind of high school girls a little bit, so, and of course we were the brother and sister school. So a lot of my classmates who knew people over there, the other sister school was of course Regina, which is closed now. So, but I got a lot of friends from, the Regina that I actually knew, but we weren't like kind of like dating, there wasn't any of that, just kind of like friends and everything. Okay. So, but that was kind of like my little introduction into like meeting girls that were like my age that I might have been interested into, but I was shy. Like you kind of remember my personality. It didn't come across as shy, but I was shy when it came to like females. Like, oh my God, she's pretty, and then I would like go into a shell a little bit. You know what I mean? Yes. But if we were just friends, you can really see what my personality is. But the dating portion of Byron versus the friends part of it, it's totally different. It's totally different. So, but I remember the first girl I dated, I think I was like 15, 16. Should I say her name?
Sure.
Her name was Stephanie. And she totally, you remember I was a bowler too. Yes. So I met her in my, bowling. Bowling league and stuff like that. And it was awesome. Her parents loved me and everything, but I felt like she was moving a little bit too fast to where I was, because I wanted to go to college and everything and wanted to go to school. I'm like, hey, this is fun and everything, but we kind of need to take a step back a little bit. Right. So that was like kind of like my first girlfriend and my first heartbreak too. So, and that was kind of like me introduction into like dating, but I didn't date anyone. It was like truly like date anybody else until like 4 or 5 years later.
Right. When you're in your 20s.
When I'm in my 20s and stuff. Now,
it's funny you bring it up. You bring up heartbreak because I wanted to talk about, we won't say her name.
No.
But we'll call her NFL.
Okay.
Because she's an NFL cheerleader at one point in time. When we were going through the pre-interview, we talked about that. And I felt that would be a good precursor to sometimes, man, Black women can be a little harsh. Can we talk about that?
Yeah.
So NFL cheerleader, you met at...
We met at the park.
At the park.
And First of all, like I never thought like I think I'm an okay looking guy. I don't think I'm fine. I don't think any of that stuff like that. I think I'm a nice looking guy. But back then, that was not who I thought I was. I was very insecure about who I was. I thought I was skinny, dark, blah, blah, blah. I remember in grade school, this girl used to tell me every day, she used to look at my face. She was one grade above me. Thank God I don't remember her, but she looked, you ugly. And I used to go,
not true,
I was like, I must be ugly. You know what I mean?
Right.
But that little stuff kind of like, you know.
It seeps inside.
It seeps inside you.
Yeah.
So that's where kind of like a little bit my confidence kind of went to a little bit. But that's where it kind of started. But so with NFL, I thought I had no shot whatsoever. But I used to say it all the time, like, she's bad. She's bad.
She's bad.
And I used to tell like Todd and John at the time. They're like, man, why don't you go talk to her? I was like, nope. Not gonna embarrass myself. Didn't do it. And I don't remember exactly what happened. You kind of made a precursor to it a little bit, but I remember just like kind of just like flirting with her a little bit, and like mentioning that, hey, at the end of the semester, getting closer because we're getting closer to really getting into the season. I was gonna have a party at my house or my apartment at the time.
Right.
But I don't remember when NFL said something to you like that portion. I know nothing about, so that was a shock. But that was a shock. But so we go throughout the summer. We have a good time. I met her family. I thought I was in was in there. I remember, now I might have said this a little bit too many times growing up, talking to my mom. I was like, I'm gonna marry that girl. And she like, boy, please. Boy, please, or whatever. I was like, no, Mom, you don't understand. You're gonna have to meet her. But I met her family, everything. We was headed somewhere. I think we went to like a comedy club or we went out to dinner or something like that. It was just fun. We had a lot of fun.
Right.
And we were getting closer to the beginning of my next school year. I think I was a junior at the time. In college. And I was moving apartments. That's right. And she goes, hey, I'm headed back to Tennessee. I'm just gonna say Tennessee. And I was a little bitch. I don't know if I'm allowed to come, but I'm not gonna lie. I remember crying. Yeah. And I'm thinking back and I'm like, why was I crying? And she was like, no, it's okay. I was like, but I thought we had something. Right. And she said, Byron, you are not my type. And I'm like, oh. She was like, you cool, but you are not the kind of type I usually go to. I'm like, well, what was all that? Did you use me for fun during the summer? So I didn't even really like think of it like that way, but this is kind of like my internal thoughts a little bit. Right. But I'm just like, man, I felt used.
Yes.
But the guy in me was like, I felt used. Yes. You know what I'm saying? But it kind of hurt on another level a little bit.
That's what I was going to ask. Like when you're sitting on the bed and she's saying, I'm leaving, I'm about to, because of course she ended up being in the NFL right after that. How did that make you feel?
I was hurt.
Especially about the type of, you're not my type of black guy.
Yeah, that hurt. That really hurt because I know I'm not that type of black guy. I'm not that athletic. I mean, I ran track in high school. I wasn't good, but I played a little bit of baseball here and there. My top sports, I bowl. I'm a good bowler. Hey, that's what I do. But I'm not like, but I'm okay, athletic and stuff, but I'm not like that guy. I'm a skinny, nerdy black guy. So for someone who I thought that wasn't on my level to tell me that I'm not on that level, I'm like, that sucks.
That's brutal.
That's brutal.
Because we often hear, and this is what I say, when it comes to black men dating white women, we often hear the justification, oh, black girls didn't like me. That's not necessarily your case as far as growing up, but it is sprinkled in there a little bit.
Yep.
Do you think that being made fun of for features beyond your control, like the girl who was like, you're ugly, you're dark, whatever, beyond your control can lead to white assimilation?
I think it can.
A young black boy.
I think it can, absolutely, because, again, this is different from me, but I can see if a black woman keeps telling me that I'm ugly. I'm lucky because only that one girl ever did that to me. But if multiple women keep saying the same thing, I'm going to look towards somewhere else to try to get love a little bit, or just,
be able to be free.
Be free. Be myself. Yeah.
Do you think that we're missing a key portion there of that eventually turns into self-hate? Because if we think about it, if every black girl said, I'm going to start dating white men, I'm going to start Asian men, for every black girl who was made fun of, then we wouldn't be here, right? We wouldn't be here. Right. So we wouldn't connect. And so there has to be some other type of key factor. Do you think that looking at your face after you got home from school and saying, I must be ugly, was like a form of self-hate to say, I am not attractive at who I am?
Yeah, but I think where that happened with me, it was a younger age.
Yeah.
And it was that age where my personality kind of came out a little bit too, because right now I have a personality where you can say what you want about me. I don't care. Like, I really don't care. I'm just kind of like that laid back person. Now, the reason for that, was it possibly from that girl? Probably, because, I grew out of the ugly duckling stage. I mean, right now, like I said, I think I'm okay, but if somebody keeps telling me that,
right,
and then another girl tells me that,
right,
and then another girl tells me that, I'm going to believe it. And a lot of guys aren't like me. A lot of people care what other people think. I'm not that guy. Yes. I used to be that guy, that young, nerdy teenager, but I'm not that guy anymore. Like, I just don't care,
And I get that. As I continue to pitch the podcast and explain to people what this is about, one of the key factors that I don't want to forget is that I am a keeper of the black man's vulnerability during these conversations. It's quite fragile, and you have to take care of it because it is hard to show up as you every day in this world. And so I think that sometimes, and be this as it may, maybe in the culture, do you think that we are too hard on each other, or maybe we're not educated, right? Because she was calling you ugly and this and that. Because I had a friend who was one of the very beginning stages of this podcast who said, I was called big nose, big lips by a black girl that had big nose, big lips.
Big lips.
And he said, black skinned guys, dark skinned guys were not popping at all in school. He's like, I'm not out here. I wasn't a thug. He said the thug, dark skinned guys got girls. So I wasn't a thug, and I wasn't out here looking like DeBarge.
Right.
And so I thought that I was.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
And usually those guys that are kind of in the middle too, their other savior is, I don't know if he's like a big football player or
Nope. He's not. It's just like what he says? He says after New Jack City came out, then dark skinned guys.
We came in?
Yeah.
Came in style. Yeah. When you're talking about, man, because I'm 40 now. Yeah. So, I mean, I think I came with my own when I started working at, of course, before you got there, it was SeaWorld at the time. Now I'm really talking my age. And that was like 99, 2000.
Right.
So dark was getting in style, but it wasn't quite there yet.
Right.
And I remember working outside all the time. I was dark.
Come on, chocolate.
Dark. And I'm just like, but that, that whole skin tone with me, it didn't really bother me so much because I think also at that age where I was really starting to like, I guess starting to like date girls a little bit, my focus was just on, in high school, working in the summer, trying to save up money, trying to buy a car, trying to do things like that. So my main focus really wasn't trying to, go find a girlfriend or anything like that. So I think I missed a lot of the opportunity where I could have been out there trying to talk to different girls and everything. Because even working at the park, meeting different
people, it was fantastic.
It was fantastic, and I really didn't even start to get like a real exposure until I became a team lead, until it switched over to, and then there was a lot of younger girls there. Oh, he black. Oh, and he got a management position. Okay, because there wasn't a lot of us in in the retail portion that was in management, so that started to give me other attention too. Yes. So I kind of let the factors kind of like come to me a little bit, and then once I started getting that confidence a little bit, that's how things kind of grew a little bit.
Right.
But even at that point, like, I'm not thinking about white, black, or whatever. Like,
it wasn't conscious.
It wasn't even conscious at that point. And this is the point where, because I was with the park for a while, so it kind of blends together when I'm talking about, into high school, into college, because even like 2 years into college, I mean, I want to be very careful with what I say. You know, I wasn't dating, you know.
Right. You were.
Yeah. I wasn't, it was college time.
Yeah.
And I was having fun.
It was good downtime.
And even then I didn't even see color.
Right.
Who was flirting with me? That's who I was flirting with back.
Right. When we talk about the story with NFL, were you kind of like defeated with dating after that? Did you feel defeated?
I was defeated that summer.
Yeah.
I was hurt, but I bounced back. It took me like 2 or 3 months because I really felt like she was the one. Yeah. You know?
I mean, well, the way she talked about you, that's what I'm saying. That's what I'm saying.
Again, yeah.
Okay.
That's, you know, and, you know, knowing what I know now, I'm like, for real? Like, that is not what she said to my face.
Right.
So. After
the fact, were you still open to dating black women?
Yeah. Absolutely.
Yeah.
You know, we can kind of go on with another conversation that we brought up. We're going to call her track star.
Track star. Yep.
We'll call her track star.
Track star.
You know, another girl who gorgeous.
Yep.
Beautiful. Again, shy Byron versus
this outgoing
Byron. Shy Byron always comes. I actually talked to like one of the guidance counselors in the Office of Multicultural Development at Akron, and I was like, "Who is that?" She was like, "Oh, that's track star. Yeah. You know." She was like, "Oh, you got a crush on her or something?" I was like, No. You should meet her. She's in the office. It's like, no, I'm not going to come in. All right, I'll be here. So I came in. She introduced us. We're just friends.
Right.
You know, and I'll tell this story, you know, fairly quickly here. We're just friends. Asked her out to dinner for Valentine's Day after we were kind of talking a little bit. Went out to this very expensive restaurant because, again, as you know, I was also a bus boy at the restaurant that was down the road there, a very high-end restaurant. And my cousin was the manager there because I lucked out. So had a Valentine's Day dinner, spent like $200 on dinner. And I was the perfect gentleman because I liked her so much. We actually went back to her place. I gave her a hug, and I left. I regret that because how everything ended.
Went down.
How everything went down.
Tell everybody how it went down.
So again, me, Byron, working a lot of hours and everything, I actually had the opportunity to pay my tuition. My car that I had at the time was like I have a white 97 Nissan Altima. You remember that? You remember Nissan? And it was running well, but I had a little extra money in my pocket. I wanted to buy a new car and didn't trade it in. So didn't trade it in, had 2 cars. So here I am, sophomore, junior in college or whatever. I got 2 cars. She knew that. So long story short, hey, Byron, my mom is sick. I need to run to this city, somewhere in Ohio. I ain't going to say the city name. Can I borrow your car? She knows how I felt about her. So, yeah, go ahead. So after about 2 weeks, I come to find out my car got broken into. She went to go hang out with her ex-boyfriend.
Track star.
Yep. So that's another situation where I absolutely felt stupid and betrayed.
Yeah.
You know, and I'm like, you know, thinking about it now, I'm like, that's why I wish, because how that particular situation ended, that I wasn't the perfect gentleman. Right. You know, but that's not me. You know, there was plenty of situations when I could have been the whore. You know what I mean? And I didn't because I respected those women. You know.
Absolutely.
You know.
As we talk, do you think that those experiences kind of led you into, of course, meeting your wife? We're about to get into that. But maybe kind of X'd out any black women in your future?
So after Track Star, Track Star, I think so that one hurt more than NFL.
NFL, yeah.
Because it was just insane. So I know after that, because that summer, that's when I had the opportunity to go to Ghana.
Yeah.
You know, so trust me, I was the last person to think I would go to Ghana and come back with a white girl.
Yep.
But I think deep down, I think I was just done. Like I could tell you that experience broke me like a lot. And I started to develop those, I don't want to say the word hatred, but it was almost like kind of a hatred a little bit. It was like, you know what? That was 1 and that was 2 in a row. That is it me? maybe I should start looking somewhere else. But that's usually what the same thing when I was done. Like I was like, I'm not dating anybody else until I'm out of college and stuff. So when I was in Ghana, this young lady really started flirting with me. And I'm like, And then of course, those nights when we weren't, in school or not, because we took a international business class there that we explored the country like for about 3 or 4 weeks afterwards. So you get to know people, and she flirted with me a lot. So that was kind of like we were talked and everything like that, and then kind of messed around on that little trip and everything. But that wasn't like the first time I like dated a white girl. She was like, there was this young lady, and I'm just going to call her name was Nikki, at the park.
Oh, okay.
Okay. And she was trash. I had no business even dealing with. And like, I remember talking to her for a little bit, and she was like that kind of like that ghetto-ness, and we kind of went out a little bit, and I was like, I can't do this with you.
It's not your style.
It's not my style. So I kind of was like, I can't do this. But that was like my first inkling. But my first time of dating a white girl was her in Ghana. Yeah. And that was after the whole NFL track star experience.
Speaking of Ghana, this is a theory.
Okay.
Help me with my theories here. Yeah. There's a theory that every white woman has had thoughts of what it would be like to be with a black man. Would you say in your experience that white women are the aggressor when they want you?
See, I always dated I can honestly tell you that doesn't apply to me because I kind of go outside of those type of white women. I like the homebodies.
Okay.
So
you don't want someone who's going to fetish you.
Yeah.
You're like,
I like the plain Jane ones.
Okay.
So, and I say this like I've dated like 15, and that's not the case.
No,
but,
it's not the case.
But
right.
the few that I did go out with, they were the plain Janes. So they were really true what they were looking for. Like when I met the girl from at Ghana or whatever, the epitome of plain Jane. Nothing special. Nothing, but she was super sweet.
Okay.
And actually, I can see that she was genuine of like actually wanting to like go out and going over her parents' house and anything like that. So it was cool. And even like my wife now, love her to death. And she'll tell you herself, my wife is another plain Jane. She is like a straight country girl with a big butt.
Right. Right. We won't forgive it.
With a big butt. So like with her, like when I first met her. You want to get into that right now? You want to hold off a second?
Yeah, I do.
Okay.
I want to get into when and how you met.
Okay. Yeah. So graduated from college. I remember going to like a career day, and of course, bringing in with Six Flags. I worked in retail.
Yep.
So looking at the application because I had to get a job. Walgreens. So got a job working at Walgreens. Was training over in East Akron, and they were like, "All right, we're gonna move you to Streetsboro." Which is right down the street from, the park.
Yeah.
So, I'm working in there, I'm meeting all the new staff. Everybody's rebuilding the store and so I got brought in as the manager was called EXA, which no longer exists. And they had like 6 or 7 EXAs in the store. We were assigned a section in the store, and this is what we had to put together. And my wife was there, Rachel. My wife was there. And we met, and nothing special or anything like that. But, as I'm putting up this candy in the aisle, I'm looking and I see this dunk, I'm like, oh, who is that over there? So that caught my attention. And she was like kind of real shy and everything. But after we were all introduced and whatever, I remember talking to her afterwards, and I was just like, oh, okay. And then a couple months later, she actually got transferred to that store. And of course, we didn't mess around with that, but I got to know her. I got to know her personality. I knew she was a little bit shy. I knew she was a little bit inexperienced, anything. But it wasn't anything that was like, that I was even like kind of fetishizing about her. Like we got to know each other on a personal level. I think I was still dating someone at the time. So it was once she transferred out, and then my relationship ended with that girl at the time, is when I called her up, was like, hey, you want to go grab dinner? And stuff like that. So
you were the
aggressor. It was me. It was me because she was super shy. And I know she was just like super sweet. And, I gave it a shot. And then that's how that ended up.
Yeah. In that moment, did you feel like, oh, you know what? I've been in situations prior to this where I haven't been accepted for who I am, but I think Rachel may accept me.
Yeah.
Do you feel that way? Like I can just be me.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Yeah.
And I didn't feel like that question would even come into my head. Just was like I could be myself with her, and I wouldn't have to try to be somebody else.
Right.
Because the previous times when I was dating black women, now that I know, I've got to be a totally different person because I might not be their type.
Right.
I can just be me.
You can be you.
I can be me.
Yeah, you can be you.
Yeah.
And it's not surprising that you met at work, right? Because we spend a lot of our time at work.
Right.
And I mean, of course, we're in the States, and so that's all that Americans do.
Right.
And so that's something that can blossom. So what did you like about her personality?
She was a smart ass.
Yeah.
And just, I could tell that her attitude was she didn't take no mess. She told it how it was. And I think what it really was, I knew that she wasn't interested in me. So I took it as a challenge a little bit. Like I was attracted to that, her personality, because she's a really, really shy girl. But when you get to know her, she's funny. She's still in that little bubble a little bit, but there's layers, and I wanted to see what can I pull, out of her.
Right.
And then I got to meet her friends a little bit, and then her personality like really showed. But I knew that she really didn't see me that way. She saw me as a colleague. Right. So I wanted to pursue it.
How was dinner that night?
So it was actually at her house.
Wow.
And she made, it was in her apartment, because she was just like, well, we can go out or I can cook. I'm like, oh, you can cook? Cool. Yeah. So I went over to her place. She made spaghetti. I remember she had 2 cats at the time. They weren't in the kitchen. That was a bonus because you know how we feel about that.
Yep.
And we were just talking over dinner. And of course, I think I was there for like 2.5 hours, but it was getting kind of late. And I didn't want her to feel uncomfortable. And I remember leaving. I was like, all right, Ray, give me a hug. And she gave me a hug. And then I went in for a kiss. And it was I shocked her when I kissed because I went in and she didn't move. And I'm just like, okay, I'm just going to peck and then run. And I surprised her. And I was just like, all right, I'll see you later. And closed the door. And I was like, oh, I shouldn't have did that. I should not have did it because I felt like we were growing there a little bit.
Right.
And we talked about like kind of going out and stuff like on a regular, but we just never did. Maybe I felt like I was a little bit too strong, so I waited till I got back to my apartment and I was just like, hey, I am so, and she said, no, it was okay. I was hoping you would. And I was just like, well, why didn't you kiss me back? She was like, well, I was still shocked that you did. Right. But I was like, oh, okay. Cool.
Sounds like she enjoyed the kiss.
She did. Okay. I mean, it was a weird kiss though. It was like, you go in and somebody just don't move. You're just like, ugh. Right. But but it all worked out.
Has she dated black men before?
No.
So this is all new.
This is all new. I think I was only like her third guy that she ever dated.
Okay.
So
and then ended up marrying.
Yeah.
When did you realize that it was going from that friendship to romantic mode, and you were like, "Oh, we're on to something here"?
It took a while, maybe like a year.
Oh, really?
Yeah. Because like I said, from the portion, like when I first met her, and then she got transferred out. Like if you want to go from when we met, and then I think it was like 8 months before she even got transferred out. It took me like a month to even like ask her out. But once we saw each other because you're all young. Yep. Y'all working together, so we would all go out as groups together. So that's when I got to see her, and that's when I got to kind of talk to her a little bit. But I would say from like that first kiss to actual like dating date, it was like maybe like 5 months, 6 months. Okay. So I worked her. Okay. Like I worked her.
Worked her right on over. Let's talk about non-physical traits. What are the 3 non-physical traits you love about your wife?
Oh my goodness. Like I said, her sarcasm. She's very, very sarcastic. I love that about her. Yeah. She's smart.
You did say that.
She's super smart. I met her, like I said, working at Walgreens, and she's now a pharmacist.
She's now a pharmacist.
So she's super smart, and she's super chill. Like I feel like Like usually they say, oh, them white girls keep you on a tight leash. Probably. But not Rachel. Like right now, I told her exactly, hey, I got to go to Chicago for business for a couple of days. I'm meeting up with my friend Zalika, who I haven't seen. And yes, we are doing a podcast about black men who date white women. And she was like, oh, well, have fun with that. I was like, don't worry, you'll probably hear it and stuff like that.
Yeah.
So yeah, everything's open and she's chill about it. She trusts me, 100%. Does she worry about certain things? I'm sure she would because, she tells me I'm handsome all the time, and
you're a handsome guy.
You better stop. But yeah, so, but I think overall I've gained that, that trust with her. I mean, but those are the top three. She's super smart. I think her being smart is just so attractive.
Yes.
Because, I was a C student, kind of B student in college. I don't even want to talk about what I was in high school.
Right.
But she was valedictorian of her class.
Oh,
so
it's on now.
So that's so that was attractive.
But you've never dealt with, and I know with the NFL, you've never dated, not smart.
Right.
So so that was going to be who you're going to be with anyway, right?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. But I think what kind of scared me a little bit too is, I guess outside of them, the girls that I knew that were in college, they didn't make it till, because, once you're a freshman, you're a freshman. And then you meet like 45, 50, black people who you're hanging out with. Then that drops down to 25. And then that dropped down to 10. And then you finally graduate and it's like 4 of y'all. And you're like, oh my goodness, what happened to everybody?
Right, what happened?
So.
Yes. So that was non-physical. Let's go physical. Let's just go the face from the forehead to the chin. What do you love about her face?
So again, love my wife. Rachel's a plain Jane. I love her hair.
No hair. No hair. Just
forehead to chin. Yep. So she's super pasty. I love that about her.
You know why I say no hair? Because it's a fetish.
Really?
Either or for, going back and forth.
That's true.
We can be real tied up with the hair. Yeah. So that's why I say no hair.
No hair. Okay, so no hair.
Forehead to the chin.
Forehead to the chin. I would say she got like a little funny smile. Like when she smiled a little bit, like only, how it's kind of a crooked smile a little bit. I think that's really cute.
Okay.
I do love her eyes, even though, don't get me wrong, dark brown eyes, it don't matter. But her eyes are weird. They're kind of like a greenish blue, almost a little bit.
Okay.
And she does have like a cute little mole on the side of her eye here, which is cute. But I can tell you, like with dealing with Rachel, it's less of a, I love her for who she is, than the physical. Because if you want to go number one with the physical, it's gonna be her butt. You know what I mean?
Right. What you said? You said you loved the booty. That was day one. That was day one.
She gonna kick my butt for time.
When you were thinking, let's think about the beginning stages of when it got serious. Okay. Were there ever any talks about race?
No.
Get out.
No. So we actually didn't start physically talking about really talking about race until I don't remember exactly what it was, but there was something on television where we almost didn't make it. And unfortunately, for the past, because we've been married for, it'll be 10 years and it'll be 11 years, excuse me. It'll be 11 years in September. So, but we've known each other for 15, 16 years. And unfortunately, since during that time, racial situations have happened. Unfortunately,
we'll get into that.
Yeah. And I don't remember which one occurred, but something happened on TV and I was just like, this is f***ed up.
Yeah.
And she goes, she gave me the typical the white person answer of, well, they should have just been new. I said, whoa, that's not going to fly. I was like, don't you understand as a child that my parents had to have a conversation with me about how to conduct myself in certain situations? And then I was like, well, this ain't going to work. But then she said, no, explain it to me. And I was just like, oh
right.
You actually want to know about it.
Yeah.
So then we had to have those conversations, kind of talking about it a little bit.
One of my favorite questions to ask is, do you think that even then or even now that you could sit down with your wife and watch Roots, Selma, one of my favorite, The Help. I love The Help. 12 Years a Slave. Do you think that you can do
So
that?
we've watched all the above.
Oh.
Yeah. She now, if this was 2012, when we were first starting to do it, probably not. Probably not. But working into it a little bit. You know, the last movie that we actually watched was The Green Book.
That was good.
Fantastic. She absolutely loved that one. Yeah. But she understood. Now,
Mahershala Ali.
Fantastic. And then, of course, you know, his secret, because, you know, he ended up being gay and everything. But she was like, that was really good. But she respected Morrison.
Yes.
You know, she respected, you know, that portion of it. But we've watched 12 Years a Slave. Yeah. We haven't watched Roots yet. I have trouble getting through.
Roots is hard. Even the miniseries. I mean,
You know, I think she caught me. Now, my dad was a big fan of Shaka Zulu.
Yeah.
So I had got it on DVD, and she caught me watching that one day. I was like, you just sit down and watch it. She was like, I don't know about this one. I was like, I respect that. I respect that. That's getting a little bit too far into it.
It's deep. It's deep. When did you realize you were going to marry her?
I realized I was going to marry her when, this is a good one, we started talking about buying a house. And usually if you have any reservations about that relationship, you're going to be like, I ain't buying no house with you. You know, you talk about things like that. And that didn't come. And the conversation started flowing about the future.
Right.
And I didn't have any reservations.
Right.
And I remember asking her just like, hey, you know, where do you see us going? And she was like, where do you see us going? I was just like, I kind of want to see how far this will take us. I was like, I love you. You know, I think that was the first time I told her I loved her. And she was just like, oh, well, you know, I love you too. Right. I was like, oh, you do? I was like, we got to talk to your parents about this, you know.
So I was talking to my Auntie Mary about, you know, there's some family things going on, some proposals that were made, and the family wasn't spoken to before. Now, her father is no longer here, the one who was proposed to, and so then you would think that the default would be her brothers and or her mother. That's a class act. That's good.
Yeah.
That was a must. Got to talk to the family.
It was a must because, again, she is from Rootstown, out Ravenna, country.
For those who don't know, that's country. It's
rural
country.
Yeah, it's. So I live in a city called Brimfield, and for short I call it Brimtucky, and it's literally about 5 minutes from Kent State University. So you got some college kids, but the other part of the town is country. That's where she's from.
Right.
So I remember like kind of talking with her mother and her father a little bit, and the first time I met them, I was welcomed. But if you know the family, I was surprised that I was welcomed because she was like, her mom is from that area, but her dad is originally from Akron. So he grew up around, you know, black people and everything. Yeah. But her mom was super always welcoming. I know exactly where she gets her personality from. She gets it from her mom, super sarcastic. And I was just always welcome in. Wow. And her mom always kind of approached it to where, hey, and I remember like talking with her mom on certain things, like Rachel used to go into another room and she would go, hey, how serious are you? I was like, pretty serious. She was like, okay. Are you talking about marriage? I was just like, well, I don't know anything. And I was thinking that. But this is when we were she was like, well, just to let you know, we're both okay with it, but we need you to just be extra careful of how the world is right now. I was like, oh, I agree with you 100%. You know, I still got to have that conversation with my parents as well, too. She was just like, okay. And then, of course, well, what about kids? I'm like, well, yeah, you know, kids are definitely okay. Well, I would love my grandchild or, you know, granddaughter, grandson or whatever, but you just got to be careful. I was like, you preaching to who are you? Right. You know, who? Yeah, I understand. I get this. Yeah, I know. So her mother was like always real open with me. And so it's the rest of her family because they're the type of people like, oh, I don't see race. Okay, You have to see race because it's all around us. So I don't want to hear that. But they legit believe that they don't see race. And I'm just like, listen, that works with you because you out in the rural areas in the country or whatever.
And there are, and so it's just them.
It's just them. Right. But now you got me, in there, and you can still say that, but that's not how we're going to view things. Right. Because it is the factor out there. Because I can tell you right now, Trumpers.
Oh, okay.
Trumpers. But they know not to bring that conversation around me.
Gotcha.
Now, back in the day, was Rachel on the Republican spectrum? Absolutely. She's leaning more liberal because she's with me, and she can kind of see that world a little bit. And even her parents, like even though we have those conversations when Trump was in office and everything like that, I was like, guys, you can say all you want to about what he's doing, but you will never understand and view it from my lens.
Right.
But they actually listened. And
I was going to ask, do you think that it was genuine, like a genuine wanting to understand?
They did.
And a genuine welcoming you into the family.
Oh, that was all genuine, 100%. I definitely believe it to this day. Like her mother will call me. Matter of fact, even before I left to, come down, head out of Chicago, I called her. It was like, hey, I'll be landing this time. Okay, cool. How everything going? Like we would just have talks. I've talked to her. There was portions during the week I would talk to her mother more than I talked to Rachel because our conflicting schedules a little bit. And we would just call and chit chat. Same thing with her dad. Like I think right now in the country to where they live at, they have a little neighborly dispute right now. Yeah. And I was just like, you need me to come down? What's going on? They're like, no, right. We're just letting you know what's going on. But yeah, they will call me and I would have calls with them. And without Rachel, I would go over there and help them out, because it's country. I'll go take down some trees or whatever type of country. And they got horses. So I help them out with the horses and everything.
This is country. Yeah, this country.
Black cowboy over here, I'm telling you.
Yeah. And so simultaneously, you were preparing your family.
Yeah.
So how did your family take it?
So my dad was cool. My dad was cool about it. He was just like, hey, whatever. And my mom is super sweet, loves Rachel to death. But she was just like, are you sure you're going to marry her? Okay. I trust you. I think you're smart. I trust you. But my mom was, and she super always, loved everything. But she did give me that side eye where we had to get pulled off to the side and have our own little conversation about it. It was like, I just want you to make sure that you're doing the right thing. And do you love her? She asked me all those questions. I was like, I do love her. Well, why do you love her? Well, Mom, she sees me for who I am. And she never, questions me. And I feel like she will always have my back. And she was like, well, that's most important. Well, I love her to death. And now I find out that because Rachel's the pharmacist, Mom calls her, hey, I got a question about my prescription. Love each other to death now. So now, yeah.
Do you think that there might have been trepidation with your mom saying, oh my God, my black son is marrying a white woman?
Even I would give it maybe like 20%.
Okay.
And I would say the only reason I know that is from my sister, because she would never tell me that.
Yeah.
My sister would say, hey man, I like Rachel. Like, oh, I love Rachel to death, but you're gonna be married if that's cool with that. Well, yeah. And then there's, when you gonna have a little mixed baby or something like that. Like my mom's side of the family was huge. It was 9 brothers and sisters all together. And a couple, they're all getting up there in age. But my one aunt, Sarah, I talked to her, at least try to talk to her once a month. She always asks, oh, when will I have my little mixed baby? So the family itself, because we all need, they always claim for, oh, we need some diversity in the family. I'm like, okay, yeah. So.
Oh, okay. Wow. So your family supportive, her family supportive. That's good.
Yeah, That's good. I can talk to like her uncles and aunt and everything. Her family's definitely not as big as mine, but if I had to call them for something, they would come through, like without a doubt. Without a doubt, yeah.
That's a blessing.
Yeah.
When we're talking about managing interracial relationships, on a scale of 1 to 10, 1 being the least, 10 being the hardest, how hard is it to show up as a black man today?
When you talk about the interracial side of it?
I'm going to get into that.
Okay.
But just,
in general.
Yeah.
So I'm surrounded by white faces.
Yeah.
My neighborhood it's a nice sized development area, but there's about 7 interracial couples, and there's about 2 black families, and we all know each other, and they're super nice. So, but where we live at right now is the Field School District. It's about 97% white, And then you got the 3% of other.
Right.
And that could be, Hispanic,
Right.
Black,
It could be
Asian, could be anything. So for your quick question, I would say about a 6.5, if that makes sense a little bit, just because of what's around in that area, and because I'm working from home too. Like I don't.
Okay.
So
not seeing as much as you would be.
Exactly.
Right?
Exactly. So
using that same scale, how hard is it to be a Black man married to a white woman today?
From what's all going on in the world, I would say about a 7.5. And I hate using the half, but I think it's important because it's hard. Like I'm not in a position to where if you had another, upcoming interview to where I'm like going out a lot, or that person that's going out a lot, with his white wife, I'm kind of in that countryside of a little bit where we go out a little bit, but we don't go out a lot. Right now she just got a new job working at a hospital, and she's got like kind of a rotating schedule a little bit, and I work 8 to 4. So, but basically when she gets home from like a closing shift, she's exhausted. She doesn't really want to go out. We'll try to like go out to a movie. We'll try to go out to dinner, but we don't do the club scene. We don't do any of that stuff. I mean, damn near 40.
Okay.
He's going, who's
right.
doing that stuff anyway. So we don't really put ourselves out there like that. But Rachel's been to family reunions, I've been, on her side of, so I still say it's hard just because of the temperature of the country right now, of what they're doing with all these law changes and everything. So I'm always aware. Like I'm always aware of our surroundings. Like, I've got my conceal and carry. Like I said, I don't go anywhere. I go bowling, because, that type of guy. But wherever it is, I'm carrying, especially when I'm with her, because I just don't know. And especially living out in BFE,
Yeah, that's the protector, Byron, that we talked about it at the top of the interview, right? So if you do find yourself out, and I know we talked about this in the pre-interview, and being in white spaces, do you find yourself code switching, or do you feel as if you are your natural self?
I used to.
Oh, tell me about that.
I used to. I would say, I'm 40 now, just turned 40 in November. I would say maybe like when we first met with Rachel a little bit, I did just to make sure I felt comfortable. I didn't want to be a threat. So I had to, turn it off. And you know me, Z. I don't talk real that way anyway. So when I code switch, it's very slight. Because what you see is what you get. But I made sure I came off as like non-threatening, especially when I met with her family. I met with her friends, on that particular scale. Now I don't care.
What you did say.
Right.
It doesn't matter.
Yeah, it doesn't matter anymore.
Why do you think, if you could talk to your younger self, why do you think that you did that?
Because I felt like I had to fit in because of where I was, even working in, being, 25, 26, working at Walgreens. I was working in Streetsboro, for crying out loud. Right. Those were a lot of white faces. Right. I remember having this old white lady came in one time and she needed to find like those nasal strips. No, it wasn't even like a nasal strip. It was like for your glasses, just like a little bridge. And I picked up the first one and it was a black strip. And she goes, "Oh, honey, those might be good for you, but not for me." And my boss just turned around and ran around the corner. And I'm just like, oh. Okay.
Oh, it's like that.
Yeah, it's like that. Yeah,
it's like that.
Yeah, like were you trying to be funny or are you trying to be racist just because of what you are?
Right.
But
so there's a fitting in aspect in our culture and in theirs. How much would you say Rachel has tried to assimilate or understand your culture?
She tries.
Yeah.
She tries. When we hang out with my family, it's because she's super shy. My family makes her feel so comfortable she doesn't have to. She doesn't try to understand what's totally going on in the conversation. She just kind of sits back and wait until she's, invited in. But my family's so welcoming, they bring her in. So she's never had to try to assimilate to us just because my family wouldn't even allow it. Even with, with our friends, one of my best friend, Denise, when I went down with her and her family, that's what we do. It
is what we do.
We never try to make them act a certain way or shun them. We always try to bring them in and make them feel more comfortable. And that's what we've always done with Rachel. So
There's my second interview. I shout out to Darnell Caver. He said, well, Zalika, my father always told me that the Black family is the structure that's normally going to be more welcoming to a white family member versus the white family being more welcoming to the Black family member. Would you say that was true for you, or you would say it's even keel?
I would say it was even. Like I never, and I don't want to say the word lucky, but I am. I'm lucky with her family. I can't name one situation that they made me feel any type of way.
Right.
Like, here's an example. Like with Rachel's grandmother, she passed away about 3 years ago in October, and I love that woman to death.
Yeah.
I was a pallbearer at her funeral.
Wow.
The only Black chocolate chip, but I was there and I was carrying the casket, and everybody knew who I was, and nobody tried to make me feel any type of way, even though they was super country as all get out. I always felt welcome, like always. So I would say for my particular situation, it was even 50-50, And again, I had never been into a relationship that deep with anyone that lasted over, well, still lasting, almost 16 years,
Exactly.
With my previous relationship with, the young lady I met in South Africa. We were together for about 3 years.
Okay.
But it had never reached the point because I knew I wasn't marrying her.
Okay.
You know what I mean? I just knew I wasn't. Right. So her family,
it's based on the situation.
Based on the situation.
Based on the man. Yeah. When it comes to the world we're in, we've mentioned this several times, so I finally want to get to it. I was going to say George Floyd, but when I was typing up the interview, I said, I'm going to choose another one that was a little bit closer to home. Okay. Jalen Walker. Akron.
Yeah.
And that's the 25-year-old man who was shot and or grazed 46 times in Akron, Ohio. That was last summer.
Yes.
How did you manage this?
So it's not funny that you bring it up because that's never a funny situation. But what they're doing right now, they're actually pulling the grand jury right now. For Jalen Walker's case right now.
That's correct.
And of course, yesterday, because Rachel was home, we're I'm prepping to leave and everything. And she goes, and this is why, like, my situation is just so different from everybody else because she goes, he's running away. I said, yeah. Why is he firing? I was like, they claim they had a gun. Remember, they said he shot out the window. They was like, but he's running away. And she was just like, this is why things are bad right now. In the climate of what's going on right now. So there's it's funny you bring that up because there's another case that's happening where I think in Solon, there was a robbery or a stolen car incident. It was involving a 17-year-old Black male, gets out of the car. It's a quick speed chase. He gets out of the car and he's running. And the cop, and the body cam footage shows it because, of course, it doesn't make national news because nobody got killed. But literally, the body cam footage shows him running away,
right,
with the gun in his hand. But he is running away, like you can see this kid's back, and he goes, "Drop the gun, drop the gun, drop the gun," and he fires off 6 or 7 shots. Thank God this cop was a bad shot, but the kid finally drops the gun and lays down.
Right.
Rachel at that point was just like, why is he firing his gun? He's obviously running away. There's no threat to you. I'm like, right, we live in a society where you shoot first and you ask questions later. Yeah. Especially with this complexion. He felt like, and this is how I feel right now, he felt like he can get away if he killed that kid. And he probably would have. Why? Because he had a gun.
Yeah.
If you put yourself, I was like, do you really think that cop would have fired off a couple rounds if that guy was white? Absolutely not. That taser would have been out.
Yeah.
Not the gun.
We do see that quite often, don't we?
Yeah, yeah. And I just think it's awesome with her where if this was 10 years ago, that conversation would have been like, it's got a gun.
Right.
I don't think she would have said he deserved to die or anything like that, but it's got a gun. But her perspective has totally changed.
You think that's because she's married to you?
Oh, absolutely.
So if she wasn't married to a Black man, you think that maybe she would still be in that same mind of thinking?
Yeah, if she was sitting with me right now, she would probably say the same thing because there was nobody there to change her. Yeah. To where it's not my responsibility to change her at all like that. Right. But I think she wanted to change. She wanted to see the world from a different perspective, and I think that's what I showed her, just that different perspective.
Yes. I brought up George Floyd. No one escaped that imagery.
No.
How did your marriage do during that time?
That's when we had a lot of talks. Just because I felt like, so George Floyd was about what, 3?
That was this 2020, summer of 2020, or beginning of 2020.
2020. So I believe, so up to like 20. So just so you know, me and her, we're trying to adopt.
Yes.
We'll
get into that.
We'll get into that. Okay. Yeah. So, and just because we were really starting to, adopt and everything, when that started happening, it was, I made sure I made it to bring up the point where, if I'm going to have a black son or a black daughter, we're going to have to talk. She was like, well, what do you mean to talk? She's never heard of the talk. Why would she know of the talk? And I was just like, the talk where we have to be on our P's and Q's at all times.
Right.
So explaining to her around that about why and what the talk was and what the perspective. George Floyd brought that out. So now she understands exactly what the talk is, no matter if the child is black, white, or biracial. Am I going to have the talk with a white baby? No. I'm going to have it with a biracial baby. I'm going to have it with a Hispanic baby. Whatever the adoption range comes out, but I'm not going to have it with the white child. It's just
because it's most not necessary in that situation. Would you say it's interesting, because I want to close this out with taking a look into the future, which is your adoption. And do you think that if you two were blessed with a biracial, black and white, like you, a representation of you two, do you think that the world would view that? Let's just say it was a son. I can see you with a son. Let's just say it was a son. Do you think the world would consider your son black?
Yes. Yeah, without a doubt. And that's the main thing that's the fact of the world right now. A biracial child, a very light-skinned black man is black. It's black. There is no complexion for the protection, if you know what I mean. They're going to be seen as this, and they're going to be a threat. And that's what I wanted her to really understand. I can't speak for her, but I'm pretty sure she's a smart girl. She knows how I feel about this whole situation, how the world is right now, why I vote the way I vote, why I won't vote for this particular person. Because even when I first started, I was, when we talk about assimilating a little bit earlier, listen to her about, well, I don't really vote for a party. I want to listen to the person and I want to listen to the facts. And I go, yeah, me too. Please. I don't need to listen to what their stance is on anything. I will, because I respect my wife and I want to hear what they're saying. But usually what they're saying doesn't pertain to me.
Okay. Gotcha. You mentioned in the pre-interview school district and how you had to explain to her that, let's say, again, we'll go back to your son. He's going to be a black boy, in your words, that he should not be put into the all-white school district. You would want to go just another 15 minutes up the street.
Absolutely.
And put them into a more diverse school district.
So, yeah, the Field School District is where we live at. It's about 97%. I said that earlier. Kent Local School Districts is right down the street, and they're about 70%.
Okay, white. So a little bit more diverse.
A lot more diverse. There will be some, and even if my child was biracial through adoption or whatever, I still want them to go there.
Yep.
Just because it's just fair to him. I don't feel like even if we were to adopt if say for some reason we adopt a all white child, white girl or white son. Yeah. I think I would still want him to go to Kent, because getting exposed to different, it just makes him a better person all around. So I think I would still say, hey, let's go send us, down the street to the Kent School District,
And most certainly, if that is the case, if you get the child, white child, they're going to have a black father.
Exactly.
And a white mother. It's important.
It's important. It's important. And I get it. Your neighbors are there, and they're all sending their. Even before I make that decision, I would ask them, because, like I said, we've known each other for about 5-6 years now. Right. What made you to these school districts? I want to know, because I don't know. I don't know what they were thinking. Right. Like it's a cluster of them. They're all about the same age, but it's only 10 of them. But that high school is about 700 deep. You get a little bit outnumbered.
Okay.
So.
And that's important to see yourself.
Exactly. It's very important. Absolutely.
As we end, we talked about in the beginning lessons. So I want to end on lessons. We're talking about your child, and I want to talk about this child because I want it to come to fruition for you.
Me too. Yeah.
So let's talk about this son or this daughter. What, when it comes to race, right? Because we're hoping that the baby looks like you and your wife.
Right.
What are some of the key lessons, especially since you nor your wife will understand the eyes of through a biracial child?
Right. So the number one thing is we have to listen. You know, I especially when, you know, the kids are, you know, getting a little bit older, we have to listen to what they're telling us and what they're experiencing, because we don't know. We don't know what that's going to be like, especially having a white mother and a black father. So that's one key thing to listen. I think one thing that we are going to have to instill upon that child is that, you know, hey, your family loves you. Your white side and your black side. Yeah. They love you. They don't care what you mix with. They love you. Yeah. But people aren't going to love you because of who your mother and who your father are. So you need to be on your P's and Q's. Now, I don't know what age to start that conversation, but it's a conversation that, you know, we're going to have. But just sharing, just knowing that he's going to be loved and not to listen, even though it's going to be hard. Kids are mean. You know, they're going to say kids are very mean. They're going to say mean things and stuff, but you got to kind of let that go. You have to grow, you know, and I'm going to try to get you there, but you have to talk to me and I'm going to listen to you. Right. That's the most important thing.
Absolutely. Yeah. Probably the talk would happen at the beginning of when they start to come into getting in spaces.
Absolutely.
Right?
Absolutely. So, it might start at kindergarten. Right. And we have to like really break it down to him and say, well,
kindergarten way.
In the kindergarten way. And then we have to build upon that. The older they get, the more questions they have, the more answers I got to have. Yeah. And like I said, I don't know how it's going to happen, but it's going to happen. But we both have to be having that conversation. Like I can't have that conversation and her being, you know, at work when I'm talking to my black son about the police. Right. You know, she has to be there. I want her to be included there, you know, to be, you know, so she can understand how that happens a little bit and support us. Right. You know, so.
Oh, Byron Johnson.
I know.
Thank you.
You are very welcome. You are very welcome.
That concludes this episode of Let's Exchange Notes podcast. Until next time, I'm Zalika Adams.